I think we probably first started writing that song after being up all night at the clubs.
Bobby has said before that something like Don't Fight It, Feel It was done at like 4 o'clock in the morning with them still E'd up and listening to Northern Soul and then trying to create something like that but modern.
We might have come back into Andrew's house from a club 5 in the morning or something, 6 in the morning, still high, and maybe sitting around listening to like soul records. Maybe he had a lot of Northern Soul records in him. Maybe we went in and started jamming and we wrote that.
What Ecstasy did and what the music scene did for that band was completely deconstructed them. You know, because at that time they were kind of on about, well, Losing Streak being a guitar band and all this sort of stuff. And it completely loaded, and the whole scene just completely deconstructed the band. And then suddenly anything went, you know, so it was drum loops. Bobby didn't have to sing on it sometimes, you know. It's like anything, tablas, synths, you know, just space rock, dub, gospel, whatever, you know. So it was everything all chucked into one big stew.
It's kind of real soul groove, you know, late 60s soul groove. And the melody's bluesy. And I don't know, it just suggested to me it should be like a song about, you know, a dance, you know, a song about... A lot of those Northern Soul songs are about how great it feels to be out there dancing and how cool you feel and, you know, taking your drugs and, you know. And I try to write a modern version of that, I guess.
I would hear them in various, you know, in demo form and then you know, I would hear them as they progressed, but I wasn't actually in the studio, that I would get given sort of versions. And with that, again, that I listened to that and I just had, for some reason, I had this annoying melody line in my head, that da, 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 you know, and I thought, well, how do you make that even more kind of like a earworm, is to make it a whistle. You know, just have that kind of almost slightly demonic kind of whistle. So, and I think that's what everyone goes on about that track, is that kind of whistle. But it was just as simple as me listening to it and thinking, that needs someone whistling over the top of it.
Don't Fight It, Feel It was kind of a highlight of their stage shows at that time, you know, and what was great about it was like Bobby was almost like one of the crowd at that point. He would just sit down on the stage, right, and groove along to it, right, while she sang it.
So we asked Denise to come out and sing with us and, you know, do Don't Fight It, Feel It, and then sing backing vocals and come together and, I say backing vocals, but sing vocals alongside me and come together and moving on up. And then she added some to Slip Inside This House and Cold Turkey and stuff. We used to do Cold Turkey live, and so she became a part of the live band, and it was great, you know. Just another, you know, it was, and I think that's the way bands should be. It should be, you know, it can be loose as well as, you know, you've got the core members, but then you've got other people who come in and they bring their thing to the party, and you know, because a band is, it can be anything you want it to be.
We were kind of influenced by George Clinton, Parliament, Funkadelic, and the way that they had this huge pool of musicians, and they could, or he had this huge pool of musicians, and he could, you never really knew who was playing what on the Funkadelic records, but it still sounded like Funkadelic, you know? Suddenly we kind of, in our own heads at least, kind of felt that we could, you know, we could do something like that. We were inspired by that, certainly.
That sound is actually, that's Denise. Just played, it was all the programming, MIDI information, playing just one vocal of Denise. So it's just everything at different pitches and doing weird shit. So, and that's the thing you hear at the beginning. There is the beautiful Denise with her lovely voice.
Getting gone, gonna dance to the music all night long. Getting up, getting down, gonna get it on. Gonna live the life I love.
Denise had that kind of voice where I was going to relate it to Miles Davis again. Is that, if you don't mind, it's like the very best musicians, off the top of my head, Denise, Borelli LeGren, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles Davis, all of the great instrumentalists, to my ears, they always sound like a band on their own, because there's something about the sound. It just, you know, particularly with Miles Davis, you know that E natural on Blue and Green, right at the start of the track, it's a B flat major 7 with the sharp 11th, and he plays the E natural, the sharp 11, and that note just comes out, and God, I mean, that kept me in food and drink for a year, just that note. And what a sound, you know. And Denise has that kind of voice. It is to do with volume, but it's also to do with a presence, so that Denise on the stage with that voice, I mean, it was fantastic to play to. Roger Hawkins, the drummer on the next album, told me that he did the original Aretha recordings with Tom Dowd. And I said to Roger, well, this is in Muscle Shoals. I said, what was it like? And he said, you didn't have to do anything. Aretha sang, and your hands just sort of did what they were supposed to do. And I'm trying to illustrate how it was being with Denise, it was just easy. She was so musical. She just did it all for you.
They were going like, well, Alex did one, Andrew and Hugo, they might want to do one. We see which one's best. It's probably like, well, if that one's best, we'll just use that one. But so we had a go, and somehow our one made it on, even though, I think my personal view is the Orb is a better version. It's more of a version. Ours is a long intro with some drummy bits and John Wobble.
Higher Than the Sun, right? In true classic album style. Let me recreate the scene. Okay. Heroic amount of charis, marijuana, pot up here. Hugo's here doing all this, all this kind of thing. I'm at the back, like I'm sitting here, listening to it.
And we did the intro, and we're just going through the intro, and I'm just bringing things in, cutting things in and out, and doing things. And before I know it, we're at the end of the song, and we've only done the interview, and we've only done the intro, and it, doesn't go anywhere. And we were looking at each other and going, this, okay, so what are we going to do now?
Massive drag on the charis. Can someone get me Jar Wobble on the phone?
Within an hour or so, Joe Wobble's round there and he's playing bass, and we've got the second half of the tune, which is basically the first half, but with Wobble in it.
That was pretty much my input to that track. But that's what I was... it's weird it seems that's what I was being paid for, was for ideas like that. That was how Higher Than the Sun came together. I was just listening to it. And thankfully, a couple of years before that, I'd got to know Joe Wobble. I'd put a record out and kind of helped. His first record he put out after he decided that being a tube driver wasn't the career for him. And so we were on reasonably good terms. And I was just listening to Higher Than the Sun, and all I could hear was Joe Wobble's bass. So I just got on the phone and got onto Jar Wobble and got him to come in and play. I mean, that was how that record was made.
I think Bobby sometimes is underrated as a lyricist, but that's a great lyric, actually. And it really just kind of nails the way I'm sure he felt at the time, and the way that a lot of people felt at the time. And just with that sort of Jar-wobbly thing, and, it was just... I mean, I don't think there's no drums in it, is there, for about the first minute or something like that, And so it just drifts in. And really, it was that Come Down record, It was that 4 a.m. sort of Come Down record that suddenly boofs into the dub.
Mark E. Smith said, everyone thinks that rock and roll's an easy job, but if you're doing it properly, it's the hardest job in the world. And I think those three knew that, and knew that they had to actually make something, had to create something. They had to work before they enjoyed the tour and going on tour and all the periphery activities that came with it. And that's what I've always got from them. I mean, I've not seen Throb for a couple of years, but particularly from Andrew Innes and Bobby, that it's because they come from working class background. They've always had that. We've got a graft. It's all well and good, all this other periphery stuff, fun as it is, but you've got to work. You've got to write a great song. I'm Coming Down. Didn't want to use a theremin, bit too much like the Beach Boys, bit too much science fiction. What's the sound I'm looking for? Oh, I know. Those plastic tubes. You remember when you were a kid, what passed for entertainment before Wii's were invented was a plastic tube that you whirled round your head and made a noise, went woo. Do you remember those?
It's this noise.
Yeah, that's the sound I want. Go and get me 6 of those. So we ended up like 6 of us, I don't know, Tay-Pops, Hugo, me, various people, in a live room, whirling day-glow plastic tubes round our heads.
And it took a lot of effort to do that, actually. I was quite tired by the end of that take.
I'd love to go, and now, by pressing this button, you can hear 5 men twirling tubes around their head, but I don't know where that would appear, or whether that just went into a sampler, or whether that is on a multi-track or anything. But that's how that record, you know, that's how the core of that record was, just us kind of sitting round and me being able to, via Hugo, being able to translate what was in my head into the reality of hardware and software.
Andy Weatherall's one of these guys who... I don't know whether Andy can play an instrument. I don't know whether he can, play a piano or anything. In other words, I don't know whether he's a practical musician, but by God, he's musical. And I've met a lot of people. Andy Weatherall is one. Jeff Barrett, who runs Heavenly Records, is another. Tim Tour, who was a friend of Primal Scream. These people I admire greatly. And in fact, I think they are more musical than me. And I've been a musician for however many years, but I think they're more musical than me because somehow they're more committed to it. Because I'm an instrumentalist, first and foremost. There are times when I take a break from music and I don't want to listen to it if I've been playing. These guys just listen to music all the time. And I recognise that in Andy, and it was tremendously impressive, you know, that he was there, and just the fact that he was there and he had this encyclopedic knowledge of music and everything. It's just great to be around, you know.
Here's the actual original saxophone. It was just really, you know, it was quite an original performance, I think. I don't think I've heard much like this.
Man's End.
That was from their original tape. It's a great sound. I really loved I'm Coming Down. I thought it was actually a really, you know, good bit of production. Blown our own trumpet there a little, but I thought it was a good piece of music. And the saxophonist was genius, because a lot of music that's made with machines, they forget to add performance, because machines aren't performance. No matter how you look at it, they still aren't a performance. And Andrew Weatherall suggesting adding this saxophonist just adds the emotion.
And again, it's Pet Sounds. We're
don't
sort of Pet Sounds fans, so...
You don't want to know, but that's close. It's a bit too close for comfort.
It's not, is it?
It's good.
And this is one that Andy Weatherall, when he arranged it beautifully, this record, because he actually started the record with what was our outro. If you listen to, you know, the thing he took our end section to start the song.
Henry did some vocals, and they were great. They were brilliant. I loved them.
And here comes the vocal samples from Henry, and they were... I think it took him about a day to do these.
Loads and loads of stacked harmonies.
And I just freak them out by putting some weird pitch change thing that makes them overflow, like a delaying thing that goes up in pitch. Just makes it sound a little sticky and strange.
Was there an element of make-up as you go along?
Well, you know, I think there is in all art, isn't there? You know, I mean, perhaps... when I watch a great guitarist play, I'm not entirely sure that they know exactly what they're doing. They look quite childlike to me, not childish, but childlike. They manage to maintain this exuberance that children have. And I think going along with that is not really being particularly careful about what one is doing, just sort of doing it. So I prefer to think that it was music born out of improvisation rather than ignorance.
We would record loads of tracks of ideas. We'd have the bare bones, the song, the melody, the chords, the main instruments, but there would also be a lot of tracks of, other kind of sporadic, spontaneous ideas that people threw down whilst in the studio.
And he would get rid of most of them, which is great. That's because records, the less it's in a record, the bigger it sounds. And it's a hard thing if you're a musician to hear you've been taken off.
It's good to be
and you've got to for the good of the record as a whole. Sometimes you've got to not be on it, because most people like to play from the beginning to the end, all the way down, and to actually pull out or have yourself
hang
pulled
back.
out.
Somebody like Miles Davis would, the band could be playing for 8-9 minutes before he even plays.
But Andy was very good at making that space, or he still, was very good. So he's dead, but he's very good at arranging and making the space in the record to make the record as big and as good as possible.
A great sense of space and a great talent for arrangement. We recorded this song, Shine Like Stars, and the original version was recorded during the Screamadelica sessions at Jam Studios, and it was it had kind of clipped, disco George McRae style, like Rock Your Baby kind of disco guitar, and it was over like a funk backbeat, wasn't it? And it was more, it's kind of funky, but that was the original version. And there might have been some mixes done in that version by the Orb and Andy Wetherill, which we rejected.
That was the only track where, when I'd finished it and presented it to them, they didn't like it. And to be honest with you, I didn't think it was quite good enough either.
We knew it was a good song, but we thought maybe the way we've recorded it and the arrangement we've done wasn't right and the instrumentation wasn't right.
There was something missing. And that something was helped by me going AWOL in Rimini. I was supposed to be, I was on a DJing trip in Rimini, and I think I was on a boat party out to sea, and the promoter said, if you want to stay an extra couple of days, I'll pay you a flight. I'll give you, whatever you need to see you through the next couple of days. And I was a little bit concerned because it's an expensive studio, but then I just thought, well, no, we're making a rock and roll record. I shouldn't really be worried about turning up late for work. It's Primal Scream, oh, I'm feeling a bit poorly, I can't come in today. So I just stayed out there, and the experiences that I had, without going into detail, went into when I came back. I was like 2 or 3 days late, but full of ideas that made Shine Like Stars the better version than before I went away.
Full of the joys of sunsets on the beach or sunrises on the beach and young love, I would say. So he insisted we put waves on the front, on the intro and the outro, and just made it a kind of happy, joyous moment,
We were doing the harmonium. Now this is what I remember. It might or not be true, but Martin playing the harmonium couldn't do the pedals at the same time because you have to sit and pump.
You got to pump.
with
You
your
got to go
feet.
with that. You got to when you're
And I
playing with your
think
keyboards. You got
there
to go
was
with
two
that.
of us pumping the pedals with our hands
While
he
he
played
played.
it. Which you can hear the squeak. When you go, you can hear all the squeaking in the harmonium.
Because a harmonium's a pump organ. It gets the air from
But he couldn't do the
foot
two. He
pumps,
didn't have
you know?
enough strength in his legs. Yeah.
I watch you sleep, you look so peaceful. You look so vulnerable.
And then it all rattling away like.
Just like sounds like.
The vocal. That's some electronics.
Roland.
Some
SH
electronics. And then some tablas. Shaker. Then you should ask Andy about the final mix because he made it really spacey and beautiful. This is just, what's coming off the tapes.
It wasn't dreamy enough. It wasn't ethereal enough. I don't think it was just too. It was too weighted. It wasn't wasted enough. And thanks to my extensive research in Rimini, I managed to make it sound a little bit more wasted.
Then there was some guy.
It's the waves.
They're not here.
Waves not there.
Some guys' bells, out of tune bells.
Those out of tune bells are pretty druggy, aren't they? A bit dissonant and disorienting. Kind of throws you a little bit, which is good. Psychedelic.
Guess this is you're about to pass out after your weekend.
This is it, just drifting off into sleep.
Shine Like Stars, it does sound like the end of an album. I mean, it was really beautifully simple,
It's a snapshot that resonates. It's what we're kind of losing now with digital photography and everything on the computer. When you look at a Polaroid, a snapshot done by a Polaroid or a still of a Super 8 film, there's a kind of otherworldliness that although it's a snapshot, it resonates through the years. It has a certain intensity and an emotional resonance that you don't get with a perfect picture. I don't with a digital picture or digital film, and Screamadelica is like that. It's like a grainy, it's like a not quite developed properly Polaroid or a still from someone's home movie shot on Super 8.
I still think it's a great piece of music, and it is now a great piece of music. It's almost like a little opera, because it tells a story, and it's still a wonderful story, and it's still the story of man. And what man's searching for and how he feels when he finds it.
It's a long time ago, 20 years, but it's a fantastic thing to be part of. I'm really pleased.
They were good times, yeah. So I can only look back with fondness,
The true soul of rock and roll, with all what it means, to me it's not only about the guitar riffs, it's about the spirit, it's about the groove, it's about the lifestyle, it's about everything that happened around this album.
That's a pretty amazing feat to make a timeless record. I mean, 20 years later, you know, you were involved with a record that you helped, you know, somebody make, and you can put it on and you still enjoy it. That's not, I mean, most of the records I've put out, I've got to be honest, I really love most of the people that were on my label. Really, nearly all of them I'm really, really fond of. But I couldn't listen to the music. But Screamadelica is one of these records I actually think's great, you know.
Enjoyed every minute. And I'll tell you what, every single member of the band would say the same thing. You know, hate getting out of it, but enjoyed every minute. 25 years of bliss.